Introducing The Secret to Victory, a new branded podcast from Gatorade and Gimlet Creative about how the best athletes in the world use defeat to fuel a win.
I'm not supposed to lose, ever.
We lost 13 in my rookie season. It was definitely a humbling year.
I'm host Dominique Foxworth. On The Secret to Victory, we'll hear from Serena Williams, Matt Ryan, Peyton Manning, and more. Visit Gatorade.com/podcast to listen now or subscribe wherever you listen.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airways of ESPN Radio. That's 98.7 FM New York City. That's 710 ESPN LA. And, of course, nationwide over the airways of ESPN Radio. Sirius XM style, Channel 80. Number to call up, as always, is 866-729-3776. That's 866-729-ESPN. Jammed-packed show coming your way today. Lots of stuff to get into. Got to get into some stuff I saw in the LA Times today about the Chargers as opposed to the Rams. I'm very, very interested in talking about that. So definitely we'll get into that. Some quarterback issues going on in New York City pertaining to the New York Jets. Lots of stuff to get into as well in regards to that. We'll be talking about both teams in L.A. and New York today. I definitely will get into that. And, of course, I'll touch on the Dodgers because they just look like a juggernaut right now. Lots of stuff to get into in regards to that. Some of the Hall of Fame speeches, some of the things that were said. LaDainian Tomlinson turned it out. Kurt Warner was obviously stellar. Jerry Jones did a good job with his speech as well. That's something that's worth getting into, which is something we're certain to do on this particular day over here on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. But there's two stories that's percolating. There's two stories that's resonating in our mind's eye as well as they should. One would be involving Tom Brady, which I will get into in just a moment. The other involves Jay Cutler going to the Miami Dolphins. Now, for the Colin Kaepernick folks out there, the supporters out there, who say, all right, this is further evidence and it was absolutely positively bogus, let me say this much. If you are the Miami Dolphins, it's not that simple, ladies and gentlemen. You have a coach in Adam Gase, who was the offensive coordinator in Chicago, who worked directly and closely with Jay Cutler a couple of years ago and helped record arguably Jay Cutler's best season as a professional quarterback in the National Football League over the past 11 seasons. Jay Cutler passed for over 3,600 yards. Jay Cutler finished with a QBR of 65. Jay Cutler was absolutely relatively decent. That much couldn't be argued. So with Gase being the head coach of Miami now, with Jay Cutler having a familiarity with that offense, knowing that he could go to walkthroughs today, step on the field tomorrow and run this man's offense because he's knowledgeable of it, we have to give credit where credit is due and respect Gase's decision in terms of his preference to want Jay Cutler in there. You can look at it that way. If you're Stephen Ross, the owner for the Miami Dolphins, you can also look at the fact that Colin Kaepernick, regardless of his stance in regards to the national anthem, kneeling during the national anthem and what have you, that's not Ross's problem in Miami. His problem in Miami is that Fidel Castro T-shirt that Colin Kaepernick wore last season. Fidel Castro, for those of you living under a rock, former dictator of Cuba. Considered a murderer, a torturer by a lot of Cubans. According to Cubans I've spoken to, he's their version of Adolf Hitler. That's how they feel about him. And Colin Kaepernick, before a game in Miami against the Dolphins, when he was quarterbacking for the 49ers, showed up wearing a Fidel Castro T-shirt, to the point that a reporter covering the team went through a back and forth with Colin Kaepernick because that particular reporter had family members who suffered under the regime of Fidel Castro. You're Stephen Ross, you have to consider that. You might be able to ignore it eventually. You might be able to usurp, just shove that aside and say, I'm the boss, I'm the owner, this is what we're going to do. And there are an abundance of folks in the minority communities who will come to your support. But the Cuban population in Miami is at 34%, according to my colleague Dan Lepetard. And the reality is that when you look at it from that perspective, you, Stephen Rush, you got to consider that. You got to ask yourself, is Colin Kaepernick worth that? Not to mention the fact that if he's a backup, they're going to be talking about him being a backup. So what else you going to talk about? Because he won't be playing, at least initially. So if he's not playing and he's a backup, what else is there to talk to him about? It would be about his protest, which included wearing a Fidel Castro T-shirt or a T-shirt emblazoned with Fidel Castro's imagery on it. So that's a problem. And if you're the Miami Dolphins, may not have been worth it to you. Here's my thing. Jay Cutler, really? See, this is where stuff just stinks to the high heavens. 11 years, 1 playoff berth, 8 times, 8 seasons, the man was 500 or worse. And you're coaxing him into accepting $10 million? With incentives attached to the contract that could push it up to $13 million for Jay Cutler? In what world does this man deserve that? I mean, what a travesty. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I consider Jay Cutler to be the worst quarterback in football. And it has very little to do with his talents. I know he can fling that football. I know he's tremendously athletic. I know he's got toughness considering the multitude of offensive coordinators, the suspect offensive lines protecting him, et cetera, et cetera. I get all of that. But the reason why I consider him the worst is because of the intangibles I was taught. Came with the position. Leadership. Galvanizing the troops. Inspirational play, etc. When the hell has that been associated with Jay Cutler? Miami wasn't going to do much with Ryan Tannehill as far as I'm concerned, and they damn sure ain't going to do much with Jay Cutler. Despite the fact that Kenny Stills can ball, and Jarvis Landry's a star, and Jay Ajayi is big time. You got Jay Cutler. Good luck. Good luck. 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. The other thing I wanted to get into was Tom Brady. 5-time champion. Greatest quarterback of the modern day era in a lot of people's eyes. Surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. The face of the National Football League at this particular moment in time. He said something the other day when asked about what his wife revealed, how he had been suffering from concussions practically every year. A reporter asked Tom Brady about that. Tom Brady, by the way, who was never listed on a concussion protocol list by the New England Patriots last season. They asked that same Tom Brady a response to what his wife had to say or his feelings overall on concussions. Listen to what the 5-time champion had to say.
I don't want to get into, things that happened in my past, certainly medical history and so forth. I really don't think that's anybody's business. So, what happened last year, and, I'm focused on this year and improving and working on things I need to get better at.
You heard Tom Brady. It's none of anybody's business. Nobody's business. That's his response. Well, one of the preeminent voices in the history of ESPN, the great Bob Lee, had this as a response Sunday morning.
With enhanced NFL protocols now in place to diagnose and treat brain trauma, that the league's greatest ever quarterback may have had concussions despite never being listed as such on an injury report, that is news. Tom Brady just turned 40. He says this is all none of our business. And Tom, I sincerely and honestly hope you can say that as you celebrate many healthy birthdays in the years ahead.
That was the great Bob Lee, basically saying the hell it isn't major news. The hell it isn't none of anybody's business. And Bob Lee would have reason to say that. In case you missed the study, Boston University study finds CTE in 110 of 111 brains of former NFL players. A Dr. Ann McKee examined the brains of 202 deceased football players and found that 110 of the 111 brains of former NFL players had chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is CTE. The results were published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. The brains were donated by families of former NFL players who showed signs of the disease. The study was not conducted on a set of random former NFL players, and Dr. McKee notes tremendous selection bias in the samples. The study went on to show that high school players in the study had mild cases, while college and professionals had more severe cases. CTE was found in 177 of the 202 brains. And the disease can cause impaired judgment, aggression, memory loss, and depression. CTE can only be diagnosed post-mortem. The study examined players as young as 23 years of age and as old as 89. The brains were also from all player positions, including 44 linemen, 10 linebackers, 17 defensive backs, and 7 quarterbacks. That's why Bob Lee said what he said. That's why Tom Brady and what he had to say was nothing short of irresponsible. And if this were anybody else, what would we be saying to them? Tom Brady could sit up there and talk about it's none of anybody's business. He's wrong. Asking him about his wife and family, that's none of their business. That's none of anybody's business. Asking him about his personal relationship and his personal life, that's none of his business. But if the NFL says that you're supposed to list players suffering from these issues, and they didn't do so, we need to be looking at the New England Patriots. If what Gisele Bündchen, Tom Brady's wife, had to say was absolutely correct. Got to look at the New England Patriots in that regard. But more importantly, if you're Tom Brady, the face of the NFL, the statesman for the NFL by and large, I can understand you not wanting to reveal anything. I can understand you saying, I'm not going to touch on that right now. I'm moving forward. I need to play football. But to sit up there and say it's none of anybody's business, well, if it's none of anybody's business, why do you have an abundance of retired players and even some former players come into the defense of retired players in pursuit of exorbitant dollars from the coffers of the National Football League because of their role, purportedly, supposedly, in disguising concussions and the potential effects of CTE? It's a legitimate question. And you would think that somebody as star-studded as Tom Brady would be thinking about something other than just himself or his team. This is an issue that transcends both, one would think. Evidently, he doesn't feel that way. 866-729-ESPN is the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. By the way, I know a lot of you had already gotten the Zebra. And are you getting happy Z's as a result? By the way, you're welcome. As for the rest of you, what's the holdup? There are too many of you snoring and being a nuisance to everyone around you. I need you to stop procrastinating and deal with this now and get a Zebra, please. Why do I know there are millions still snoring? Because I used to be one of you. You know I always keep it real with my listeners. I snored loud, very loud, and perpetually. It was a disaster, for crying out loud. But then I got committed to stopping my snoring. And I tried the Zebra, and guess what? It's worked. It's still working because I'm still using it practically every night. And here's the way you can, too. Go to their website, Zyppah, ZYPPAH.com. They know you click through all the 5-star testimonials and watch the video proving it works. That's what they're advising you to do. They also know that you actually went through the process of putting a Zebra in your shopping cart. Now finish the process and get a Zebra already. Listen, people, your snoring is not going to stop until you get a Zebra. I don't care what it costs. Sleep is priceless. You would know this if you got a Zebra. That's why I'm telling you to go get it. Stop procrastinating. Go to Zyppah.com. That's ZYPPAH.com. Remember, Zyppah is Happy Z, spelled backwards. Your phone calls and more in a minute with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Only thing I want to say about Tom Brady is that it's just selfish. Those kind of "it's none of your business" answers are totally understandable. If I'm asking you about your personal life, it's not personal. If it pertains to you being on a football field, there is nothing about a concussion issue that's personal in this day and age when it comes to the National Football League. That's just a fact. And it really, really begs questions as to what the New England Patriots were doing, because he was never listed on the injury reports. All he had to do was say, I don't know what you're talking about. I was healthy all last year. But to sit up there and say, I honestly don't think it's anybody's business, that's insane. If I'm the NFL, I'm like, you see what we're talking about? Y'all keep blaming us. Look at these players. Why do we have to give up all of this dough? They clearly want to play. That's the way to look at it. Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, 866-729-ESPN. That's 866-729-3776. Jeff in Brooklyn, you're live with Stephen A. What's up, Jeff? Go ahead.
Hi, Stephen A. How's it going?
I'm all right. Go ahead, buddy.
I had a question in regards to the Jay Cutler signing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, because you said that he had a mildly decent season when he had his previous coach.
That's what they say. I mean, if that's what they want to do, go ahead.
Within 15 games, he went 6-9.
That's what they said. They're talking about his numbers. They're not talking about his record, sir. They're talking about the 3,600 plus yards that he threw for and the 65 QBR. I'm tempted to side with you, but I'm just telling you what they're saying.
Okay, I understand. So let me ask you a personal question. Do you think he's better than Colin?
No. I think that Colin Kaepernick is a better athlete. I think that Jay Cutler is a better pure passer, but I think the intangibles are to Kaepernick's advantage, not to mention the fact that Colin Kaepernick doesn't alienate teammates the way that Jay Cutler has. Jay Cutler is leaderless. Guys who have played with him don't speak highly about him.
Wow.
That's just
one
the
last
truth.
question.
Hurry up. Go ahead.
Do you think Melo's going to come back?
I know he does not want to. I know that he's made it clear to the Knicks that he wants out. I'm even hearing that, you know what, he might not even show up in training camp. It remains to be seen. I'm not sure. I reached out, haven't heard back from him, but who knows what's going to happen right now. But I do believe that he's not going to go down quietly. He's not going to settle for remaining with the New York Knicks quietly. Carmelo Anthony wants out. He does not want to be in New York any longer playing for the New York Knicks. He wants out. He wants to go to Houston. That much I do know. That's all I can tell you right now. Appreciate the call. Let's go to Alan in Long Island. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Al?
Hey, Steve. A long-time listener of your show. I support you 100%. But I just have one small criticism about the Kaepernick whole incident. If you just allow me to be very brief. I'm a long-time voter. I've been voting since 18. I'm older than you. But it hurts me when you continue to say that he's a flaming hypocrite because of his whole kneeling down and not saying who's going to vote. Question being, I was very upset with the last elections, but shortly after the election was over, a calm of peace came over me when the other party won, because now if it wasn't for us, the people lack of voting, coming out to vote, so on and so forth, we would never have known all the things that we have found out in the last 6 months of the party that's in play right now. So opposed
like
to
what? What things have we found out?
Oh, how malicious the other party can be, how connected they are with the foreign countries, or all the.
That's not true. You're wrong. You're wrong. We've always known. The progressive side, the leftists, they've always known that. They've always explained that. The differences between the two sides and the two parties, there's nothing new. We are, for better or worse, there's nothing new that we've learned. That is not true. It's not true that we suddenly found out things we didn't know about one party or the other. It's politics, and we consistently lament how bad both sides can be in their respective ways. There's no secrets there. Zero.
Country has been exposed in the last 6 months like it has never been exposed
That's
before.
not true. That's not true. That's factually incorrect. That's factually incorrect. My man Joe Madison on Urban View, Sirius XM, Channel 126. Every weekday morning, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Even once Trump was elected, he said, ladies and gentlemen, we've been here before. This is not new. The things that you could say today, we might have seen some things we've never seen before from a particular candidate or a particular president, but the trials and tribulations, the challenges that we face are not new. Are not new at all. So I disagree with you on that, but I appreciate the call.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here at ESPN Radio, 866-729. ESPN is always the number to call up. That's 866-729-3776. Hoping to have him on in the next couple of minutes, but until he calls in, let's go to Tony. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Tony. What's up?
Hey, Steve. Thanks for taking my call. I just had a quick point about Colin Kaepernick. Now, I'm a military veteran, and I actually understood the reason why he knelt and his calls and stuff like that. And I think the thing that I get into arguments about people the most is that they're ignorant on the whole situation as far as, I fought for my country so that we could have these freedoms and the right to do stuff like that. So I don't understand how some people can sit there and be like, well, he has to kneel, he has to do this, and so on and so forth.
Well, you understand exactly what it is, Tony. It's hypocritical Americans that exist in this nation. On one hand, we'll applaud our First Amendment rights, our constitutional rights to free speech and things of that nature, particularly the right to protest, etc. But on the same breath, we want you to pay a price for it. And so their mentality is that that's constitutional. Like, he doesn't have to go to jail or anything like that. But that doesn't mean we have to like it. We have to accept it. We have to embrace it. That's their mentality, and that's why they think the way they think, and they think it's justified.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You hit it right on the head. And then just one last thing. I've been every time the spot gets opened up and Kaepernick has the potential to go to a team, and then he gets passed up. It infuriates me. But I can actually see it, and you touched on it a little bit. I can see why. Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins have their hesitancy because of the huge Cuban demographic that there is there. But Jay Cutler.
You got to be kidding me. No. 11 years, 8 times, 8 of 500 record or worse, only one playoff appearance, the most leaderless quarterback we've seen in the modern era.
Right.
Doesn't have a leadership bone in his body.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I get the arm talent that everyone throws out, arm talent. But, okay, if he was so talented with his arm, then how come he hasn't been more successful? And then who's to say that he can even I know I'm just throwing it out there, but who's say that he can even beat out Matt Moore on the team?
Well, they brought him in there, and Gase clearly believes in them because you brought him in because you don't have that much faith in the backup, which is Matt Moore. And when you got Stills and Landry and Ajayi and those boys, you got to give yourself the best chance to win. And if you're Gase, the man played for you, and he had one of his better seasons with you, so you're going to have a level of confidence in him, particularly when you're just 2 years removed from having that season. But, Tony, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Yemi, you're live with Stephen A. real quick. Go ahead, Yemi.
Hey, Stephen, I got 2 questions for you. How bad do you think the Bears are going to be this year, and how big of a miss was it not taking Deshaun Watson?
I think it was a big Mitch. I don't understand how Trubisky, of all people, ends up being the number 2 overall pick. That really, really rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't comprehend it. I don't understand it. I don't get it at all. It was just a turnoff for me. They drafted this kid, Shaheen, out of Ashland. I don't know where the hell that is. And, of course, they had Eddie Jackson in the 4th round. He's a free safety out of Alabama. So you want to believe that they're going to take a step in the right direction. I'm just looking at some of the things right now. I'm looking at a guy, just when you look at some of their individual stats. Matt Barkley was your leading quarterback in terms of yardage, 1,611 yards. He had 8 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. You had Brian Hoyer in there. Okay, you had Jay Cutler, of course. I just wonder where you go from here. Justin Howard balled. He averaged more than 5 yards a carry, rushed for over 1,300 yards. You've got some stuff there, but who are your receivers? I mean, I'm just wondering right now. Alshon Jeffrey's in Philadelphia right now. Who do you have? I just look at this team, and I got some serious questions about what the Bears going to do. I think they have last place written all over them. You got this kid, Mike Glennon, who's supposed to be a successor. I don't know whether that's going to work out. Trubisky eventually is going to be in there. I just don't see it. Marcus Wheaton and Kendall Wright. These are your primary receivers. Cam Meredith, undrafted in 2015. I know he had a good year in 2016 with 888 yards receiving, but I'm just saying, I just don't see it, man. I see it, and then I'm not the biggest fan in the world of John Fox. I think he's old school. I think he's beyond his time. I think he's past his time, and he needs to go. So I think that the Bears might win about 6 games, 5 to 6 games, and I see last place written all over you.
Okay. Hey, Stephen A. Smith, one more question. Hey, I got a question for you, like personal question. I'm a grad student at DePaul University in Chicago doing sports journalism. You got any quick advice for me?
Not on the air, bro. I got listeners. I got millions of listeners. Not on the air. Talk to my producer, and I'll get in touch with you. I got to run.
Sounds good.
Appreciate the call. 866-729-ESPN. It's 866-729-3776. More of your calls. And hopefully John Bones Jones in a minute. This is Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Couple of things before I get back to the calls. Our heartfelt condolences on behalf of my staff, everybody associated with the Stephen A. Smith Show, and, of course, the ESPN family, out to the family of Don Baylor. Passed away at the age of 68. Longtime manager in the major leagues, player as well as a manager. Darren Dalton, all-star catcher for the Philadelphia Phillies and leader of their 1993 National League Championship team. He passed away, died of cancer at the age of 55 as well. So we wanted to make sure we extended our heartfelt condolences out to all of those folks. New York Yankees still 3 games back from the Boston Red Sox. Severino flat out balled. Yesterday, he looked sensational. Throwing 100 miles an hour. Gave up 2 hits, 8-1 victory. Struck out 9 over 6.2 innings. Yankees won 8-1 over the Indians at Progressive Field in Cleveland. Over his last 5 starts, he's 9-4 with a 2.41 ERA. Has allowed just 3 earned runs over 32.2 innings, with 38 strikeouts for a 4-0 record and a 0.83 ERA. That's in the span of his last 5 starts. Got 2 different sliders. Got a changeup throwing 100 miles an hour consistently. Only 23 years of age. Schooled by the great former pitcher Pedro Martinez. And by the way, this is the same Severino that was 0-8 with an 8.50 ERA in 11 starts last year. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but Pedro Martinez would be hired as a pitching coach for me right away. I mean, this dude. I mean, whatever the hell he's done with this kid, it's something else. Story is still a Dodgers, though. Right now, you can make the argument Severino's the best young pitcher in New York. You're talking about a Mets squad with Syndergaard and DeGrom and Matz and all of these boys. And nobody's paying attention to the Mets because they're so god-awful, 49-60 this year, and they're just not getting it done. This kid, Matz, 0-4 with an 11.03 ERA in his last 6 starts. Jesus. I mean, why don't you just go home? I mean, I can do that. 0-4 with an 11 or the ERA over 11. I can do that. I mean, Lord. And, of course, the story of the Major League Baseball season are these Dodgers, 79-32, 47 games over 500. That's just sensational. Here's the catastrophe. If you go through all of that during the regular season and turn around and lose. I mean, the Dodgers absolutely positively have to get to the World Series. I'm talking about, of course, you want them to win it, but you got to get there. You 40-plus games over 500 and you don't even get to the World Series, that's a nightmarish ending to a season like that. That's beyond disappointing. And you're winning without Kershaw. Back to the phones we go, 866-729-ESPN. Let's go to Rock. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Rock? Good afternoon.
What's going on, my brother? How you doing this
I'm
evening,
all right.
man?
Thank you for calling. What's going on?
Man, I just want to tell you the love doctor done got me hitched, man.
You getting married?
Yeah, I'm getting married, man. March 17th. Thanks to you, man.
Congratulations. Why is it thanks to me? What did I do?
because you steered everything right back in the right spot. Then taking a note out the 10-11 book, and played some music for it, man, and said what I had to say. Everything went perfect, man.
Listen, I'm not telling you, I'm not talking about myself because obviously I'm not married. You see what I'm saying? But there's the people out there like yourself and others. You got that special someone, and it ain't just about the one you with. It's about the one you can't live without. And when you know definitively, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that is how you feel about a woman, you got to have the courage to step up and go that extra mile. Now, if you got doubts, then that's different. You got to try to erase those doubts before you do those things. But if you don't have those doubts, you got to have courage. That's when you got to man up. And you manned up, Rock, and that's why you a better man than most. Congratulations.
Appreciate it, man. But what I want to do is, man, I want to hear I have to hear your rant. When I woke up this morning, man, after seeing that Jay Cutler is stealing more money again, man, I just had to call in. I just had to hear you rant on this.
Listen, man, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. 11 years, 8 times. 8 of those years he was 500 or worse. He's only been in the playoff 1 time in 11 years, and that was when he was pedaling on a bicycle instead of backpedaling in the pocket of an NFC Championship game. He lacks inspiration. He doesn't seem to care. He just has this ambiance about him that says, I'm fine. Life is cool. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Obviously he's got a beautiful wife and family, so he's living larger than most. And I just don't understand how somebody could try to coax him out of retirement, successful at it, giving him $10 million plus incentives that could push it to $13 million. I don't know what the hell he's done to earn such money, but if Don King is going to say only in America, damn it, that's what I got to flow with. Only in America.
Yeah.
All right.
But maybe he might do a Marlboro commercial or a beer commercial for a beer.
Maybe so. The way he was looking all fat and nasty when the wife was taking the pictures of him, maybe that's exactly what he's been doing, drinking a bunch of brews. I don't know. Good luck to Miami, though. We'll see what you're getting. I got to run, Rock. I appreciate the call and congratulations, buddy. Let's go to Mustafa real quick. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead.
Sports and politics, they always should be different from one another. But in this Kaepernick situation, they're going hand in hand. It has become abundantly clear that Kaepernick is being blackballed. All the 32 owners are hesitant in signing him. And anyone who says otherwise are rejecting the truth blindly, just like Jason Garrett was in the press conference when he was talking about the Lucky Whitehead kid. So we're looking at this situation here. I understand from an owner's perspective, you have to appease the public in a certain extent, but it can't go this far. When you have individuals who are not qualified getting the job over people who are, there is a problem. It's sending the wrong message, and this is something that it's been going on for a long time, I know, but it's completely wrong. It's completely unethical. But I understand why the people don't want Colin Kaepernick, but he should not be getting destroyed like this. I mean, it's just. Well,
he's being ostracized. His girlfriend with some of those tweets haven't helped. When you sit there and depict Ray Lewis and Steve Bisciotti in that light, knowing they were considering bringing you on board, that didn't help your cause. If you're Colin Kaepernick wearing a Fidel Castro T-shirt for a team that you ultimately was going to try to play for, that didn't help your cause. So it's not just the kneeling of the national anthem; it's other things as well. And then if we're going to talk about the business of the National Football League, let's be clear: this is not the NBA. You heard Mark Cuban speak about how Colin Kaepernick would be embraced, not ostracized by the NBA. He's absolutely right. But that has something to do with the fact that the NBA is a global brand. So it's not just the support of the minority community that they rely upon, but also a global audience, which is obviously going to side with Kaepernick. But here in America, you have a large segment of the white populace that look at him and say the nerve, the unmitigated gall of him, and that's how they approach it, and that's what he has to deal with. Mustafa, I got to go. I appreciate the call, buddy. Thank you so much. But that's the reality. That's the reality of the situation. I think Colin Kaepernick is getting screwed over big time, no doubt. But I'm not surprised. And it's going to take folks standing up and speaking on his behalf and making things uncomfortable for the NFL in order for things to change. Rapper J. Cole probably took a step in that direction. Others will need to follow. Hour number 2 up next with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it!